I'm glad to have you on. So, guys, today we have on Thala Labs. Um, Usual format. We're going through some question and answer. We're going to do a little bit of learning. We're going to talk about an upcoming campaign that's going to be launching on Galxe with Thala Labs. So yeah, let's begin and just hop right into it. You'll be able to random listeners will win a prize of a value of 100 USDC for 5 separate users today. So make sure you listen in and enjoy yourself. So San, glad to have you on. Just to start, would you be able to give us an intro to yourself and then just give us a basic rundown of what Thala Labs is?
Yeah, for sure. So unfortunately, my other co-founder, Adam, couldn't make it as he had something urgent to take care of.
Totally
Yeah, just
okay.
to give a quick intro on Thala first, we're a move-based DeFi protocol building out a product suite. So we have a CDP stablecoin that's pretty much our main product and a rebalancer AMM. So as I said, we're trying to build out this DeFi suite. So we have various products built on top of these two core products,
Mhm.
the CDP and the AMM, and one of which I think we announced a couple of weeks ago, Thala Launch, which leverages the LBP functionality of the AMM. So in terms of
Yeah.
my background, I've been in crypto for 3-4 years now. Before this, I worked in business development at several L1s, helped build out a derivative protocol and L2. And Adam is ex-Parify Capital, who led our seed round. So he basically led the investment efforts into Aptos when he was at Parify. So we both have lots of experience building stablecoins.
Yeah.
With Parify having a big bag in MakerDAO, so
Yeah.
Adam played a
Yeah.
pretty big role in Maker governance. So, yeah, we were really
That's pretty
interested in
cool.
models like Maker and Frax, and even more like esoteric models like MIM, Bean, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a
Frax is
little bit of
cool.
background on us.
Awesome. Yeah. And how big is the team currently? Do you guys have quite a lot of guys with you or?
Yes, just to give you a little bit more context on the team. So there's 16
Yeah.
people right now. 7 of us, or no, 8 of us are on the non-technical side, so BD, marketing, strategy, et cetera, et cetera. And the rest of the team are on the engineering side.
Awesome. Yeah. We're similar except we've in the last like 6 months or so grown quite a lot more. So it's fun to get to work with so many people from different places as well with crypto backgrounds. And so in the initial intro to Thala Labs, you mentioned a few words like CDP and AMM for users that might not be too, I guess, savvy or maybe still learning. Can you go into what a CDP is for the users listening?
Yeah, for sure. So CDP basically just stands for Collateralized Debt Positions. And this just
Yeah,
refers to a model of stable coins, which are over collateralized, right? So I think very popular, very well known examples of this would be MakerDAO's DAI, Liquidity's
yeah,
LUSD. There's some smaller ones like My Finance is My, or sorry, Key Finance is My, and so on. So yeah, that's kind of a brief overview on the model. If you want a little bit more specifications, happy to do that as well.
of course. Yeah, we'll go into a few more detailed questions. One more sort of intro question we have was what led to the decision of Aptos being involved with Thala Labs?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, obviously, I think Adam has a much stronger thesis on why Aptos, considering that he led Parify's 2 rounds or their two
Yeah,
investments into Aptos. But I think for me, initially, there was such a big breadth of DeFi protocols that are being built when the ecosystem was still like very nascent in I think like December or no, like November of last year, right? And obviously, I don't think that's panned out too well. I think. I mean, how much TVL is there? Like 60 mil, 70 mil. So I mean, obviously, the ecosystem
hmm,
is still like very nascent. But I think for us, since our core product is a stable coin, we really want to enable day one integrations, right? So we want to
yeah,
make sure that our stablecoin is integrated into the various perp dexes, lending markets, and so on, and all these primitives. So that was the selling point for me, and I think Move is also a superior language compared to Solidity and the EVM chains. But I don't have too much to say on that. And I think the Aptos team also does a really great job supporting the builders. I don't know if you saw, but recently they connected us with Google Cloud. So we have a
yeah.
grant program going on with them, part of their
That's super
accelerator.
cool.
So yeah, just they're also really heads down, working with the team and continuing to update the infrastructure and other pieces that really make the
Yeah.
ecosystem work.
No, that's awesome. And yeah, any questions today that Adam was more so meant to answer? Don't worry. I know he had something come up. I'm not much of the tech guy either on my side, so no stress there. But going into the stablecoin, into Thala stablecoin, MOD, sort of in the realm of CDP stablecoins, what makes I guess mod, I'll call it mod or MOD, what makes mod different from other CDP stables? How do you feel that you guys are ahead of the curve?
Yeah, great question. I think, when it comes to CDP models that we have on the market, like DAI, USD, I think, there's not much to iterate on that.
Yeah.
But, when approaching how to build like a solid, robust stablecoin, I think there's really three aspects, right? And first one being decentralization, peg stability and capital efficiency. I think for pretty much all over collateralized stablecoins that enable some
Mhm.
form of redemptions, peg stability is really solved for, right? Like there's no issues. Like DAI has no issues with its peg. LUSD, even
Yeah.
though it drifts up, it's never deep pegged to the downside, right? So I think it's really a matter of decentralization and capital efficiency for CDP stablecoins, right? So it's always a trade off between these two. So when you look at the maker model with DAI and their peg stability module PSM, which basically just takes in USDC, right? It's made DAI a lot more robust and a lot more liquid, and pretty much indestructible. Like the peg is really
Yeah,
impenetrable, but there's a huge
that's what we
centralization
want.
risk, right? Yeah, and
Yeah.
especially with the recent Paxos news around BUSD, there's a lot of risks
Yes.
concerning
A
the
ton.
centralized stable coins. So that's kind of like one end of the spectrum, and on the other end, there's liquidity that's really maximally decentralized, right? So they have tons of different front ends. It's basically all run through governance. But I think because it's so decentralized and it doesn't take in USDC and these other more stable assets, the peg is just not stable. And obviously, it's not going to the downside, but I think it trades sometimes like up to like $1.1, and that just doesn't make it very usable, right? So that kind of
No,
breaks
yeah.
apart the PMF, and I think you can see it from the total outstanding supply of LUSD. It just doesn't have much usage compared to these other more centralized stable coins like USDC and USDT. So I realize this was kind of like a long-winded answer, but so
No worries.
here's where kind of mod comes in, right? I think
Yeah.
you know for us, we really want to focus on onboarding real-world assets. So instead of in taking something like tethers and circles to really you know bolster that peg and make it more capital efficient, we want to do it with real world assets. So I don't want to name drop too many of our partners that are in the pipeline, but we're working with
Yeah.
lots of real world asset providers on Ethereum, on Solana, but we're going to be bringing treasuries on chain, maybe even like carbon credits and things like that,
Cool. Yeah.
which
I like carbon credits.
right, which are essentially alternatives to these stablecoin products, like basically using
Yeah.
USDC, but it's also yield bearing, and it's by nature of being more diversified, it also offers that decentralized aspect. So yeah, short answer, I think mod really addresses this stablecoin trilemma without making
Yeah.
compromises to either the capital efficiency piece or decentralization piece.
Amazing. Yeah. Thanks for the short sum up at the end. No worries on the longer explanations. It was easy to understand your explanation, so it's all good. It just shows the passion that you have in the product that you've put together, right? So, and I know that you guys have a few other products as well alongside Mod, the CDP stable. You mentioned at the beginning the AMM, Thala's AMM. I know it's called Thala Swap. Would you be able to give us an overview of Thala's AMM?
Yeah, for sure. So, Thala Swap is, our secondary product that
Yeah,
iterates on the balancer model. So it's a rebalancer AMM with the core pool offerings of the weighted pools, which are dynamic in its pool weightings, the stable pools, and liquidity bootstrapping pools. So,
yeah.
as I'm sure most people know on Aptos, there's already tons of these Uniswap v2 variants within the ecosystem, right? So there's Quantum, there's Pancake Swap, and I
There's a
think
million, yeah.
yeah, I think there's also like Anime Swap and a bunch of other smaller ones.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I think Thala Swap brings a unique value proposition with the dynamic pool weightings. I think one such instance is 80/20 VLPTs, and for a lot of people this might just sound like gibberish, but Balancer incorporates this model with their own dynamic weightings, and I think it's just a superior way of running V tokenomics. But I don't want to get too much into this, as I know it's a little too complicated.
Yeah, it can be a lot for users that haven't gone into full many acronyms, I think is the big thing. So, um, is it so my final question in regards to the Thala Swap, is it standalone product or there's integrations with mod alongside Thala Swap as well?
Yeah, so I mean, I think to give a little bit more context, it's important to understand that our core product is still Move Dollar, our CDP stablecoin, and
Yes.
the reason why we wanted to build out this AMM and vertically expand into this space was to really strengthen the potential use cases for mod and liquidity and whatnot, right? So if you
Yeah.
guys are very familiar with ETH DeFi, with curve wars and whatnot, at the height
Yeah.
of like the quote unquote stablecoin wars, a lot of projects were coming on, bribing for convex and accruing like the curve voting power, right? And I think
Yes.
this was very good for curve and that whole ecosystem, but not the most productive way of building liquidity. And we've seen firsthand, we can see now that this was not sustainable, right? I mean, curve and convex prices are down like 80%, 90% from highs, and a lot of these protocols that accumulated tons of convex and curve. I don't think it was the best way of using their or deploying their treasury. So I think for us, we saw this and we're like, okay, hey, like we also want protocol and liquidity. We also want to build very strong liquidity for mod. But if we build this AMM ourselves and also enable like V tokenomics and
Yeah.
whatnot, we can really own that piece, right? So we're truly owning the liquidity that's being built.
Yeah, a lot of the that's that I see. I like that. A lot of the stuff with Curve that happened over the last year, and everybody, the many different projects and protocols that came together. Even like Butterfly, for example, that sort of I can't remember exactly how they did it, but they accumulated so much, and it was exciting. But in the end, it didn't end up going anywhere really. So. Um, it's been, yeah, the stablecoin wars have been, that's a crazy thought. It's come such a long way since that point. I remember even just like time flies, honestly. That's the best way to put it with that. So, but yeah, I appreciate the explanation there. And so we have one more acronym, I guess, for everybody. And another product that I'd be interested to hear about, the Thala Launch, the Launchpad from Thala Labs, another product of yours. Could you go into how Thala Launchpad works and maybe talk a little bit about LBPs?
Yeah, for sure. So I wouldn't really call Thala Launch a standalone product, right? So there's really only
Okay, okay. So
two
it's not a
products, but
standalone? Okay, okay.
right, I would say Thala Launch is just an extension of Thala Swap, as it essentially
Another
utilizes
piece.
the AMM, right? So going a little bit
Yes.
more into it, it's powered by or it's enabled by what's called a liquidity bootstrapping pool. So as I mentioned earlier, this allows for dynamic pool weightings. So if you guys are familiar with Copper Launch, or I think they rebranded to Fjord, correct me if I'm wrong. But this basically allows for token launches with minimal capital or liquidity being seeded from day one, right? So, I
Yeah.
mean, Mango markets on Solana, Copper. I mean, at the height of the bull, like these guys were doing billions in volume, right? So I think
It was
it's a really big
insane.
space
Yeah.
to tap into. And I know Pancake Swap also has their IFO or no, their TGE platform. But I think the LBP is definitely has its pros above the batch auctions. I think it
Yeah.
allows for more organic price discovery, as people aren't just crowding into like a capped round, right? So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was a project that recently launched on Pancake Swap's launchpad, and it was capped at $400,000. But the total capital that was, I think it was done pro rata, so anything over that
Yeah.
would be just split up. I think there was $70 million in commits, right? So there was clearly like a misalignment in terms of what the project thought was, the fair valuation and what the users thought
Exactly.
was a
Yeah.
good deal. So I think LBPs essentially allow for this equitable way of distributing tokens where both parties kind of get what they want, right?
Yeah, you can see exactly what you're getting in the moment. It's not, it's, I guess, less mystery. Sadly though, the only, I didn't participate in too many LVPs. I did a couple on Copper, and sadly, like the only one that I really kind of participated in the like a spur of the moment was the Anubis one. And that ended up being a scam. So that wasn't it was like my first LBP and I was like, oh man. But after that I participated in a couple more, I think. And it's a nice spin, I think, on the process. So I think a lot of people should look into this and take the time to research the different launch styles here for sure, guys. Um, so so I guess the next question would be, what does Thala Launch do to sort of lead the curve as well in this section? And why should projects use Thala Launch for their token launch?
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up Anubis because I
Yeah,
can't quite remember if it rugged midway through. I think it was after. I think it was after the LBP was
it
done.
was like right. So it was. I was the night before, right? I some people I knew put a lot into it, and they were people that at the time I was like, this is a smart guy. Still a smart guy, but a little jumped ahead of himself, obviously. But I was like, okay, well, I'll check this out, right? I see it's interesting, it's being talked about so much, right? We'll go for it. It was in a definitely a dangerous time where there was just scams left and right. And I remember I went to sleep and I woke up at 6 a.m. and I looked and it had ended like 10 minutes ago. And then exactly 10 minutes after, or something along those lines, it was just like gone, everything gone. So yeah, it was like it was just like definitely directly after the close.
No, I definitely remember that as well. It was a
Yeah,
huge deal in the DeFi space or in the DeFi community, and CT was just going crazy. But I mean, I guess to kind of get back to the point, and I think this is really
yeah.
relevant. I think in a nascent ecosystem, it's really hard to tell. It's really hard to decipher what projects are legitimate and which aren't, right? So
Yeah.
something that we're doing is doing a curate. We're basically curating the projects that are launching. So if they're not docs, they'll have to docs with us. We'll review their
Oh,
code
that's good.
base.
Yeah.
We'll ensure that it's audited, and we'll likely have like a multi-sig of 6 to 7 people who are big or like prominent in the actors community. So whether it be Austin or whether it be Alejo from Pontum, we'll probably build a council, and these guys will have to vet. We'll work with them in vetting these projects and ensuring that they're legitimate.
Yeah, I think that's a huge process that a lot of people just some are just a little too it's a lot of effort honestly with the vetting, but it goes a long way in trust. And I think that having a product and a project that has that level of trust will put you way further ahead than anyone else doing the same. So especially seeing the amount of times where people think like, no, they're not doxxed, but oh, this seems trustworthy, right? This person has a name, right? But at the end of the day, you can never know, right? There's so many stolen accounts, et cetera. We've seen this time and time again. So it's nice to see that due diligence come across with Thala Launch. That's nice. Appreciate that.
Yeah, so I think that kind of covers the user side, but I think there's also very strong value proposition for projects that might want to launch using our
Yeah,
platform. So instead of just going to do a TGE and trying to seed liquidity elsewhere, we'll really help the projects that decide to launch with us and help them spin up the initial liquidity on Thala Swap and help them figure out their parameters and what type of pool is right for them, and also
yeah.
help incentivize their pools. So bootstrapping liquidity, all that jazz. And, I think this is a little far fetched. I think starting now, but if the projects get big enough, we can even onboard it as collateral for mod, right? So it's kind of like a
Interesting.
3-step process that
Yeah.
really helps and enables these different projects to grow bigger.
No, I like that a lot. I don't think it's too far fetched. That's it. I like the idea. So my other question for you, we talked a bit so far about the different coinciding products with Launchpad, AMM, CDP, etc. From a user perspective, maybe we'll go into something more simple. What is the first move that a user that wants to get involved with this should do? Like, where should they go? And is the UI and sort of user process very easy for someone to kind of get set up using your products?
Yeah, so if I could, speak a little bit broadly, I think the UI UX of DeFi, like dApps in general, is still extremely lacking. So for the average user
Yeah,
to come on and to try to figure out what's what and how to use the products, I think it's still a big work in progress. And I think that applies to us as well, sadly.
Same for us as well. Yeah, it's
Right.
tough, but yeah, it's hard, right? But you have to keep, and I think just guiding users to try these products, right, is the best way to get feedback, right? So
Yeah, but I think in terms of the product flow for the Thala app, there's really I think two processes, right? So it's
yeah,
either you want to use the CDP or you want to use the AMM, and the Launchpad being a part of that, right? So if a user wants to make a swap, they can just go directly onto the swap page, right? And I think it's fairly intuitive, right? I mean, I think most of the dexes pretty much have the exact same front end. We have made some like iterations, but I think it's the swap widgets are pretty rudimentary, right? So the flow is fairly simple on that end for the AMM. So you can swap, you can LP, you can do those things. But if you want to use a CDP, there's a flow for using the vaults. So basically just opening the vaults against your collateral, borrowing
yeah,
mod. And we also have a stability pool similar to liquidity. So if you minted mod, right, and you're trying to think of like how you can generate yield on that, and you can deposit it into the stability pool, and it'll be basically used as a backstop to absorb the debts and the liquidations that occur on the vaults. So I mean, yeah, that's kind of one way you could use the CDP. There's also a liquidator table, but I don't think that's too relevant. Yeah, I think the flow is actually quite simplified because as long as the user kind of knows what product they want to use, whether it be the MM or the CDP, I think it's fairly easy to figure out.
awesome. Yeah, and that actually you actually did answer one of my other miscellaneous questions about earning yield. So that gets out of the way. Appreciate that. And now coming towards the end quarter, I know we are launching. Well, you are launching with us on Galxe, a particular campaign that's coming very soon. I know it's not out yet. Would you be able to go into a bit of detail for everybody listening on that campaign?
Yeah, for sure. So, I'm not too in touch with, our marketing guys on this, but basically, we're doing a testnet campaign, right? So our testnet will probably go live within the next week or so.
Yeah,
And there will be various quests for users to try out our app on testnet. So whether it be minting mod against WBTC with whatever collateral is available on testnet, making a swap, trying out the LP, or trying to add liquidity into our liquidity pools. Um, yeah, I mean that basically sums up the I think the campaign. I don't really know which the granular specifics for the tasks, but I think that pretty
no
much
worries.
sums it up
That
in terms
should,
of using the
yeah.
CDP and the MM.
Of course, yeah, and the more finer details, guys, will obviously be released closer to the launch date. But keep your eyes peeled on the Thala Labs space on our platform, and then any other important piece of information we can put below the Twitter space today. So that's totally fine there. But yeah, I look forward to that coming in the next week or so. So that should be exciting. You guys can get a chance to check out the different pieces that we talked about today. So. That'll be super fun. And so, San, my sort of final question for you would be in regards to, we talked a lot about what's been built so far. Is there anything you'd like to cover more so what's in store for the future of Thala for the year of 2023? What may be some of the top priorities for you guys this year?
Yeah, no, great question. I think in terms of roadmap items, the number one thing that we probably want to do after shipping to mainnet, sometime early Q2 or maybe even
Yeah,
end of Q1. The first thing that we'd probably want to build out is the V tokenomics model. So that's something that we're already developing right now. So I mean, I don't think there's too much to say on that. It's just a simple V model, same as balance or curve. But I would say the more something that I'm personally really excited about is the real world asset integrations. So I was how I was talking a lot about this when discussing the stablecoin.
yeah,
We're basically working with a bunch of providers across, ETH, Solana, et cetera, on bringing their collateral and allowing the user to essentially borrow against it while it's still generating yields. So it's essentially very capital efficient way. It's an alternative to the stable coins, but I already talked about this. So yeah, just enabling real asset integrations and other more like exotic yield bearing collateral types. And I would say it's worth noting that the collateral base that we can support for mod is largely dictated by the ecosystem growth. So if there's say like a strong lending market that emerges, we can support their deposit receipt tokens and etc. Yeah, I would just say real
Amazing.
world assets. That's one big thing. And the last piece, I'm sure lots of people have already speculated this, but we'll likely be deploying to Sui and any other move chains that kind of emerge. Even though we
Amazing.
chose Aptos as our home base, we definitely want to expand because I think multi-chain is always great. So yeah, I mean, I think
I agree.
those three are the main items that I have on top of my mind.
Amazing. I hope your multi-chain journey goes smoothly. I think it's the best move, honestly, for many. Nothing wrong with being chain agnostic, right? So, and then always to have your home, of course. Aptos is good. I agree. So, but thank you for coming on today, San. It's been a nice discussion. I have so many acronyms to go through for sure, but it's just another learning opportunity for everybody listening, right? And they can definitely go through that process when the campaign launches within the next week or so. So that should be a very fun process for everybody here, getting a chance to go through these products today. You can still, guys, also head over to Thala Labs and check out everything we spoke about today. Make sure you read through, do some due diligence, do little bit of learning before the campaign goes live, and then yeah, we can do this together. But with that, we will come to a close for today. One more time, guys, 5 random listeners from today will get 100 USDC each. That would be announced by Thala later on. But yeah, once again, thank you, San, for coming on. And do you have any final sentences at all to say before we close out?
No, I think you covered it really well. So thanks for having us again. Really appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ping me in the Discord. Check out the docs. And yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for coming on. You're a wonderful guest. Appreciate it so much. Thank you to all the listeners. Check out Thala Labs socials. You can listen back to this anytime if you want to go through it once again. This will be recorded. Appreciate it. Stay tuned in the next week. Thank you again, guys, and have a good morning, afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are. Appreciate it. See you for now.